Good evening. For the record, we called this meeting to order at 5 o'clock this evening on the 23rd of April. We went immediately into executive session to conduct 4 interviews, 2 for the town service officer and 2 for listers. We'll make those announcements later on. At this time, I'd like to go with the Pledge of Allegiance and ask Sharon, will you lead us, please?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, the next items on the agenda are the minutes. First one, April 9th.
I'll move they be accepted as printed.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion on April 9th minutes? All in favor? That's 6-4, 1 absent. April 16th minutes.
I'll move those be accepted as printed.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Not all in favor? Justin, you voted on this?
Yep, sorry.
So I didn't see it. Okay, 6-4, 1 absent. Next item on the agenda are the warrants. Jason, we'll start with you.
None.
Okay. Greg? Justin?
Yes, page 2, creative movements sessions, it's 300, 882. I'm just curious what that was.
Page 2?
Yeah.
That's Mary Anderson.
Creative movement. Okay. Hey, what is that?
Stu, is that for the senior center?
Yeah, it's Mary Anderson.
Oh, yeah, it is. I see. Yeah, it's Mary Anderson. I'm looking for creative movements, knocking myself out. Yes, that is the senior center.
Okay.
Okay. That is all.
Jim?
Yeah, on page 4 and on page 5, Comcast is listed as an internet provider, and then on page 5, number 30919, there's Fairpoint Communications Internet as well at a much less expensive rate.
We have Comcast is our main supplier for internet, and Fairpoint provides probably one line to, and I would guess that's the Willow Road Garage.
Looks like a better deal, though. I mean, it's essentially the same service, is that right?
Well, it's only one port, though, so.
You're paying $97, almost $100 per port on page 4.
Yeah, well, that could well be, but I wouldn't guess at that point right now, Jim.
Okay. On page 6, Green Mountain Communication Network, there's a list of things, Russell invoices, round-trip transport. What are those?
Green Mountain Community Network is the public bus service. We are the pass-through for the earmark that Bernie Sanders got for us several years ago. Russell is the contractor that's doing the renovations to the multimodal transit center there, and they also provide transportation services to our senior center when we can't accommodate the numbers.
On page 7, item number 30936 under Home Depot Credit Service. These are all items, I think I mentioned this in the last meeting, and I'm just wondering why we're spending our money there instead of Greenberg.
It really depends on what the particular people are looking for. I couldn't say that one is more cost efficient than the other, but I know we do use Greenberg's as well. We have a standing purchase order there, and as you can see on the other page, on page 6, there we use Greenberg as well. So,
right. On page 8, item number 30945, Mac Hayden Theater. What is that?
That's senior citizens. We buy tickets for theater, and then we recover the funds by selling those tickets to the seniors who wish to participate.
And the item just beneath that, Madison Square Garden.
That's the same thing. That's the
Okay.
Rockette Special, I believe.
Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Sure.
Just a couple of things, Stuart. On page 5, that electrical installation, what was that for?
Electrical installation.
It's like the fourth item down on page 5 for $2,400.
Yeah, that's a water filtration plant expense, probably having to do with some of the repairs or upgrades continuing at the water filtration plant itself.
Did miss one more thing.
Okay, and is the same, just farther down that farm pump and irrigation, is that for the wastewater treatment? Or is that for the water department?
That is also, that's the water system. That's the work done to replace the mechanical screen at our intake. The screen filters the raw material and organic material that comes down the Bowles Brook before it enters the piping to go to our system, and that was part of what was damaged in Irene.
Okay. And then on page 11 for Schultz Construction, is that the final bill on the water intake for $205,000?
I'm going to say if it's not, it's very close
Okay.
to the final bill. The only thing I think we have pending there is the water line installation on the bridge itself, which will be done under contract with the state of Vermont.
Okay.
Get one more.
Yeah, on page 9, at the top of the page, New Horizon Communication, there's a series of numbers that are identical, and then the fifth number down is rather sizable, and then about 10 or 11 down there, we've got one item for 1,000, over 1,000, then one for 1,454. What are those?
Those are all phone charges related to various buildings. The largest charges that you have there are charged to the administrative offices, that's the town office, and obviously we use the phones a good deal. The second is the police department, is the next largest, and then you have the $400 is charged off to the fire department. And it's all part of, it contains not only the lines coming into the building charges, but also the use charges.
I want to follow along with what Sharon started. Stuart started on page 8 with the engineering design on a water intake from MSK. Now, if I'm understanding this correct, that was the engineer work that was required before we did the actual stuff that Schultz Construction did, that we paid him.
Right.
We just get a late request from the engineers as far as late
More
bill?
than likely, it's inspection services. They were our engineer on site, ensuring that the work was done according to the plans.
Okay. And you're pretty sure that's going to complete that, except for what the state's going to do?
I believe that's true, yes.
Okay. And that's all I've got. Okay, next item are citizens. Do we have any citizen out there? Joanne, would you like to come forward, please? Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, it's Joanne Ehrenhaus with the Bennington Area Chamber of Commerce, and I want to take this opportunity to remind everybody that this coming Saturday night is the annual Aurora Dance Party, and that's open to everybody in our community and beyond. It's going to be held at the Morse Industrial Park at the Abacus Warehouse. So if you can get over to the Morse Industrial Park, if you don't know how to do it, come out Northside Drive like you're going past McDonald's towards Price Chopper, and when you get to the American Legion and the bowling alley, at that light, go up and then make a left. It'll swing you right around and take you down into the Morse Industrial Park. And as you know, it always starts at 8 o'clock. It goes until Jimmy Woodward can't play music and have live acts anymore, so usually about 1 o'clock in the morning. It's a wonderful time for everybody. Still $15 at the door, as it has been for the past 7 years. So we make a club out of a warehouse, and it's a real fun evening, so I hope everybody will make it. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Joanne. Any other citizens have anything anything they'd like to speak to the Select Board or the people of Bennington? If not, next item on the agenda is designated downtown boundary line adjustment for the Catamount School. Dan Monks, you want to come forward, please?
Hello, everyone. I did distribute prepare a memorandum for everyone, and I'll just do some quick background for the folks at home. As everyone knows, the Catamount School was sold, recently sold to a private developer, and the town has been working to redevelop that site now for almost 2 years with that developer, and one of the things that we are trying to do is ensure that that building is eligible for historic preservation tax credits. The state had initially told us that that building was eligible, but when they looked a little bit more closely, they determined that it's not eligible for state historic preservation tax credits because it's not located within the designated downtown or the downtown improvement district. And we went back and looked, discussed with some of the folks that were involved with setting that boundary back in 1999, I believe. And the reason it wasn't included was because it was, at the time, a tax-exempt entity, namely a school. So we basically, if you look at the map, you can see that the map basically gerrymanders around that parcel. So in an attempt to correct that situation, I'm here requesting this evening that the board approve an amendment to that boundary line so that we can submit an application to the downtown board to amend that boundary line and therefore make this building eligible for state historic preservation tax credits, which are a significant incentive for development. There will also be some other incentives that will come along with this, including some code improvement deductions for permit fees and other things like that. So.
Okay, Jason?
Dan, I've got no problem adopting what you've proposed before. So the only question I have regards a couple lots on Gage Street.
Sure.
Put out here on the south side of Gage Street, one of which I know to be a business. The other two, I think, might be commercial properties in the form of apartment houses. You used a term in your preamble there about gerrymandering. I know we've talked a lot about zoning issues over the years. By creating this change where we put the former Catamount School into the downtown improvement district, is there, and obviously from what you've proposed, those three stay out, is there any issue, and I think they probably want to stay out, is there any danger that they automatically would get co-opted in at some point? No,
the only way that they can be included is if this board approves them to be included, okay. And subsequently the downtown board approves it. So it's kind of a two-step process. We can't guarantee that it will be included by the downtown board. Our initial feedback from the staff of the downtown board and a couple of the board members is that there's been precedent for this in the past. They see it as a correction. It's not a major change to the district, and we have had a favorable response. Okay.
So no issue with those lots on Gage Street?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other board member? Greg?
I just want to point out that it's not unusual for this line to go around a property because of this type of thing, such as if you look to the south, where the BBC and the courthouse are located, it goes right around these because of the public use issue. So.
Right, those are publicly buildings that are tax exempt anyway. Those three.
Right. If they were to change use, then you would have the same situation where they.
I just would want to point out to everyone, the staff did consult with the BBC, and Shanahan may want to discuss the BBC's position, but my understanding is they are in support of the change.
There's one thing I think confuses a lot of people. We keep throwing around the downtown district, but it's really the downtown improvement district.
That's correct.
There's a big difference because people take a look at the downtown district, and I was confused by this many years ago when we got into it. And I said, well, why isn't this downtown? It's downtown, it's on Main Street. Well, no, the statute really defines the character of the neighborhoods and streets that you can include in your downtown improvement district, which on our maps here just shows all the green area here where it's been there. And I believe we were the second town in the state to get that designation, and we've probably got over millions of dollars worth of grants and money from the state since we've had that. designation. There's only maybe 9 or 10 towns in the whole state that has that designation, so we're pretty lucky there. And the school obviously was not a taxable entity. That's why it was not included the first time. But I'm questioning, I heard what you said about Gage Street, but isn't one of those a pizza shop or a thing?
It's the other side of the street.
Was it the other side of the street?
Yeah.
Okay.
The pet store and
All right.
and the glass
And
shop.
then why along the river? Because that's housing?
It's the Bennington Housing Authority.
That's theirs?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
That's why that was gerrymandered.
So there's no reason that'll ever change there.
Oh, yeah. Never say never.
Never say never,
Unlikely,
but
right?
unlikely.
And they become
I never
luxury
saw the
condos.
Catamount School close either, but.
And again, our improvement of this tonight is just to send this forward to the State Downtown Board for its final approval before we're going to do this.
That's right.
Okay, can I have a motion?
Make a motion
I have a motion to,
to accept the request.
okay, do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? And that's 6-4, 1 absent. Thank you, Dan. The next item is Better Bennington Corporation briefing. I asked John Shanahan last if he'd come forward today and give us an update of what's happening in the designated downtown district. Because I know there's a lot of activity going on.
Well, there is. John Shanahan with the Better Bennington Corp. And Joe, thanks for asking us to come down and do that, except as you know, the attention has always been on downtown anyway, so anytime anything good happens, everybody hears about it. The best news, I think we've all heard last week, was that Old Castle Theater is going to be coming downtown, thanks to their board and to the Greenberg family for making that happening. We've already met with them and discussed what their plans are for the front of the building.
Them being Eric Peterson?
Eric Peterson and some of the board members, yeah. Too soon for them to be able to make any specific plans for the front of the building because the deal still hasn't been finalized where they can get into the building.
Well, plus there's some construction has to be also, it has to be done in the building itself.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, quite a
Our
bit of
concern,
construction.
because we were working with Bennington and Bloom, and we do the banners and the benches and work with the town, is speaking with him is what could we do to help enhance the plans he has for the front. So Bennington and Bloom has earmarked some plantings for it. And I told Eric just to let me know what he'd like us to do with it. But that's the good news. Some other good news is, it's a good and bad news, is residential downtown. We had Mark Benson, who's with the Vermont Voltage, who is one of the people involved with the purchase of Catamount School, was looking for a place to live downtown. So I called Jack Appleman about his condos upstairs. And good news is those are all taken. Those are full. I asked about his other properties south of town. He said there was nothing available there too. So there's really at this point one available residential property left in downtown Bennington. Good sign that people are interested in living there. Bad sign that we don't have any additional housing. So that has been on our work plans to be a focus for development and future projects downtown.
I'm confused, John.
Sure.
Because it's not ready to be occupied?
No, they're all...
Or just not the physical square footage for housing downtown?
There is none. Everything that is available downtown is occupied. That's in the district, the specific district. Those would be the ones, LM Realty Apartments, the old Cannery Redemption Center that was turned into apartments. Those are full. The Applejack condos, those are full. The few housing places, they don't really apply to the district, but we keep in touch with the landlords to see what's available, to keep an inventory for downtown. And I currently have nothing available if anybody calls, except for one property, which is upstairs from the old Lucky Dragon, which just recently, I haven't even seen it yet to see the completed work that was done to it. But that's the one that we have available. After that, any inquiries, we would have to send them either as close to the district as possible or completely out. That's the good news. We're also working with a woman, and we have a meeting tomorrow morning to really start moving forward regarding a food co-op, which has been something that the BBC has been working on for years. And the right person came along and has been working with us for about 4 months. And a landlord downtown has really bent over backwards to help us make a location happen. As far as knowing that it's a membership-driven type initiative, So she has waived any rent whatsoever for the first couple of months, and then did a staggering for the first year with a cap so that this project can get up and going, because we're really the last area in the state that does not have a food co-op in our region.
Can you disclose where that's going to be? Where it's
Not yet. I can't. I think very soon, maybe even as soon as tomorrow. It's just, because at this point, all we can do is be a resource to help make things happen, but it's between this organization and the landlord. Which is the same with Old Castle Theater. I just walk around biting my tongue for about 4 months, just because it's up to them to break the news and us just to be there to help make it happen. But those are the big projects going on right now, and along with the event this Saturday, next Saturday, May 5th, at the Tour of the Dragons, we've been working along with Jim Marshall the entire time how to overcome some of those obstacles for having a big event like that restricts access to some of the businesses.
Are there any of our merchants doing promotions during that thing?
Yeah.
Can you give us an idea what those will be?
Yeah, and same thing. I don't have it in writing, but I know Star Electric has told me that she's going to be raffling off a television that day. On Friday, to kick it off, and to celebrate the 40th anniversary, Jay's Frame Shop and Art Gallery is doing 50% off the entire store. There are other merchants that are having food specials during the day when it's normally quiet.
Any popcorn on the street?
I believe there will be popcorn on the street. Yes, there will be. Very good. Evans News will be providing popcorn on the street. We have some entertainers that we've brought down to sprinkle around downtown, so that wherever you are, there'll be some activity going on. And then we're doing a first annual event if the race does stay downtown. It's a sidewalk chalk art drawing contest, because the barriers for the race are going to be on the outside of the parking spots, which will leave them empty. So it's going to be in celebration of Tour of the Dragons and Year of the Dragon. There'll be a dragon art contest, and it's open to all ages. And we're going to give away bikes, skateboards, dragon kites, and then do raffles that the people have to go inside the track to get the raffle ticket to any one of the merchants that are open, just to get people down here and keep them down here and give them something else to look at during the, in between the races and during the races.
How's Mayfest look?
Looks really good.
Number of vendors?
Not specific. We got like 7 more in today, and the deadline's already been passed by about a month.
That happens every year, though, right?
It does, and it's good and bad. It makes it tough for us because the map's been done for a month, and so we have to keep redoing the map. But the good news is the event's changing a little bit from just arts and crafts to more of, well, you know, the farmers market's going to come down and join us this year, and so that's going to be from the First Baptist Church all the way down to the old high school location. We do have about 21 entertainers already lined up, 6 different stages. And this year, in addition to adding the farmers market, we're also doing a little section that promotes some Bennington businesses that are up and coming. Illusion Camo is one of them this year. We're doing a booth for Catamount Glass, which makes 2 products in Bennington, or they complete the products, print them, and it's Catamount Glass works with Lynn at Tuscan Flowers, where they sell a product where they give her either a sun tea maker or a popcorn maker. She makes an arrangement, so it's a gift, and it's good for 2 Bennington businesses. So already discussing next year's event is, because there are so many businesses interested of products that are made right here, we're going to have the arts and craft vendor section, farmers market section, nonprofit section that does every nonprofit does an activity, and then have a Bennington business, made in Bennington section. Okay. So the event it's kind of morphing each year as we go along.
You have a feel for when Dan Turcotte's going to have the recording studio up and running?
No, every time I go up there, he has a lot of work done on it, but he's already had like 3 or 4 events, actually. He has another one coming up the night of Mayfest. I can't remember what type of music. Sorry if you're listening, but it was something that didn't appeal to me, but I think it was like harder music or something. Yeah. But 4 or 5 little groups that play. So he has a performance space, which is really nice and sharp up there, plus his studio. And the recording studio, each time I go up there, it's done a little bit more. And I've actually encouraged him to come to the town, to come up and see it and see if there's anything the town can do to help him get that going.
In our conference call this afternoon with Paul Costello, you heard me ask or mention about the concern of citizens about making the downtown a destination, whether we're making it for tourists or whether we're making it for residents. So my question is going to go to you is downtown designation for residents. A few years ago, we did away with the music under the tent, for reasons I understand, because you're there to support the merchants. They were not getting the business from these folks, even though people were coming down and enjoying the music. But do you remember the last year we did it, about what did that cost you for the summer?
Yeah, that ran between $10,000 and $15,000 a year, which was by far our largest expense of the year. And that was based on a lot of sponsorships. And that's dwindled a little bit in the last couple of years. We have all the sponsors there, but they've all backed down a little bit, but stayed in with the promise that they'd get back up as soon as business turned around, which we understood.
At that time, the typical band was costing us about $800, is that correct?
Yeah, well, between $800, because we used to bring them in, a lot of them from out of the area, but as low as like $300–400 too, for someone who didn't have to travel or eat and stay in town.
If the sponsorship was there, could, on a smaller scale than what we did at the Merchants Bank, could an activity like that be done at our renovated park next to the old blacksmith building?
Not
put the tent up, not putting a tent up, but
I mean, just have somebody stand there and play.
Some kind of
yeah, and that's kind of like what we're looking at, where we have an entertainer. We haven't even looked at that spot, but one in front of South Street Cafe, one in front of Evans News, one in front of Panache, so that on a Saturday afternoon during the summer, when you're walking around, there's musicians or performers right on Main Street. So that's how we've moved the money, and they're not set times, just at any time, so that there's some vitality on Main Street when you're either driving through for the first time, or if you're a resident just downtown, there's live music in the air. Those events that occurred at night, not only was it just the expense, it was late Friday and Saturday every night that we had to staff, put that tent up, which is a beast, and that's already beyond its life, maybe another year to go on that one, and that in itself was a $15,000 expense. The benches, finding a location, maintaining the property, and then to think about the benefits that were returned from that were very, very little, except that it was a nice community event.
Right.
Get that, but we're to add vitality to Main Street more than have nighttime events downtown, unless the shops are all open.
Right. And you tried it in the afternoon and it didn't work.
Yeah, we did. Actually, I think that I made a mistake. I should have stopped it, started it again with a different name, different location, and made it like a live at 5, because in urban areas you get out of work and there's a place to go outside.
Right.
I've talked to Stu once or twice, the difficulty, like if we close that section of School Street between Main and Pleasant, I'd like to go back and look at that, because Rutland is doing that frequently now, closing down the streets Thursdays and Friday nights for activities in afternoons.
I'm going to ask the board on your opinions on this thing, because I'm hearing quite a bit about this now from residents, and I know other towns, like John just mentioned, Rutland's doing it. Jason?
The Live at 5 idea makes a lot of sense, and I've seen that work in other urban areas. That keeps people downtown, who are downtown to begin with. We're pressed, we've got, I don't know about the shutting down of the streets, because we do have space, whether it was the old Merchants property, whether it's the old Hart Theater property on a smaller scale, like maybe you suggest. I wouldn't have thought of that, but maybe that would work. If we were going to shut down part of the street, though, I would only make the comment that you have a bank that's open until 6 o'clock right there. I can attest to the fact that that is well utilized between 4. I think they're open till 6 on Fridays. If you were going to shut down the street there to do something, and you've got a restaurant across the street from there, I mean, a lot of people, You know, it's not unheard of to get takeout Chinese on a Friday night. That can affect that. However, if you were able to just shut down just a fraction of that street so that the curb, between maybe Main Street and the curb cut to the bank, that would allow people to get in and out of the bank. They could still get to the bank. They wouldn't have the idea, listen, if there was sponsorship there for something like that, to keep people downtown on a Friday night, it would have my support.
Greg, you're a musician. What do you think?
Well, we used to play it regularly.
You're the one for $1,000 a night?
No, we were.
Yeah, you made me ask in front of Greg.
We were the cheap
Sorry
one.
you made $100.
But so I was one of the sticks in John's side to try and keep it going. But his argument was good. I mean, it was more of a mission issue. The amount of time and the amount of money, and I mean, he made one statement to me that kind of shut me up, was when he said, I'm sick of asking musicians to play for half their regular fee just to squeak it into our budget and then spend all this time when we could be working on Mayfest and other things. He said, we're a business organization, and I don't feel comfortable asking people to be constantly dropping their price to do this when I'm not really sure it's in our mission. He's never argued with me that it was a good idea to have the concert downtown, and I think it's something that Bennington really benefits from. I think his idea of moving it to 5:30 was great. I thought that made a significant improvement in both the attendance and the continuity of having people downtown from daytime hours right into early dining hours. You could go to a concert and then go out and have dinner afterwards, whereas the old one, the old time slot, when you got done, there were a couple bars open and that was it. So I thought that model was great. The logistics always seems to be the thing. You need a stage, you need power, you need a sound system, something like that. Where do you do that? Is it on private property? Is it on public property? I've envisioned the town hall lawn. You have the front porch of the town hall that you could use as a stage. It's there's power, and you have a sizable lawn.
It's a good idea. Some towns do that. I've seen that done.
There's some street noise, but if the band is away from the street, it helps a little bit. I mean, one of the issues with Merchants Park was when the band backed up to the street, a truck would go by and you would lose the continuity of the concert. So John moved it across, and that helped. But it seems to be a lot of logistics, but I've always thought it's a very worthwhile thing for our downtown.
Are you aware or not if Merchants Bank's still willing to let us utilize their space?
In my discussions with him, yeah, he lets us use it for almost anything. But like Greg was saying too, we buy the insurance rider, we pay for the electricity to be installed, we pay to have the tent set up, pay for the bands, and at 5 o'clock for that location, when it used to be late at night, 7 to 9, traffic was a little slower, but the trouble there is when trucks did stop and then took off, you would keep getting these puffs of black smoke, and the traffic would be at full tilt if we did it at 5 at that location. Band members hated that location. They were thrilled we moved it. Bad thing is, where we did move it to was no shade, no grass, so it was dusty. So it was some good, some bad, but both, again, being private locations. It wasn't something we could call the shots in. Everything we did, we not only approved with the select board, with the bands, with BBC, with the landowners, and it was like logistical nightmare all summer long. And then after the second or third year, I just couldn't see any benefit. And literally asked all the merchants, and they're like, "We don't even care if you do it or not." And so that kind of answered that question.
Jim?
I like the town office idea, having it there. And, if there's ever any trouble, you only have to cross the street and knock on the police's door.
I don't think there ever was a trouble in all the years we ran it. I never heard of the police having to be called or anything. No, seriously, I mean, you would think sooner or later, we did it, 8 weeks or 7 weeks, 8 weeks?
It was from Midnight Madness to...
It's 5 weeks, I think.
5 weeks.
5 weeks. You would think there'd be something, but there wasn't. And it was obviously for the locals. We had some, would come from the outer communities, but generally it was something here. Sharon?
Yeah, we used to, there used to, when it was in Merchants Park, there used to be big crowds there who would bring their chairs and,
Oh, yeah. It definitely got nice. It got nice, too, when we got rid of that big tent. Because once you could sit out in the open, a long time ago, it used to, that circus-sized tent there.
Yeah, that was a little large, but, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I'd love to have something downtown like that. You know, it was real easy to get out of work and just walk down the street and listen to the music and, you know, whatever. But it's all about the location, I think.
I wonder if it might be worthwhile to check to see the availability of the formal Tuttle lot.
You know, again, you have no grass there,
So that's all dust.
and it's wide open, no shade. And, you know, part of the problem, the tents had
Thinking
it.
of an open space.
We used to get the tent from the chamber, right?
Well, it's not even, again, if somebody or some organization wanted to use the Tuttle lot and do it, good for them. It would be, number one, pulling people off of Main Street. It'd actually be going against my mission to put it over there. The only reason I kept the entertainment going during the day was to add vitality to the street, not just, I'm a concert organizer. I don't do the concerts just to have concerts. I do it for the result that they would produce, and something, because we looked over like Riverwalk doing them, and we're like, you know what, we're not an entertainment organization. We use entertainment as a tool, not as our goal. So there are people have called me, lots of people, why don't you do them up at Willow Park? Do them up at Willow Park, it's a perfect place, but I don't know who's going to do them, but they should definitely be done. There's another location, the Vets Home has contacted me, wanting me to move my concerts to the gazebo there. And same thing, I gave them all the contact information, all the band information. And that's half of it. The other half is me knocking on doors and making phone calls, raising money, and it just, the scale went like this before we canceled them.
Let me ask you this, John. From the lessons we've learned, I mean, you inherited a program, and you had to tweak it along, and then you found out it's just not fitting into the BBC's mission. Do you feel, if not for this season coming up, but down, let's say, next season, take the lessons we learned from doing that as far as where it was, the logistics involved, the amount of money it cost, and the time that it would best benefit the activities we're looking for in downtown? Could your board take a look at that, come back to us in a few months and tell us, hey, Select Board, if you'll work with us on this thing, we think we can pull this off where it will be beneficial, or do you think it's not worth the effort?
Well, we did. I mean, we did all that before we even canceled it. We didn't just say, okay, enough of this, and move on. Before we canceled it, we looked at alternate locations and times. The times would have to be, why I spoke with Stu recently. I'm going to back up and get off track a little bit. The farmers market, Tuesday nights, is moving from Riverwalk to Greenberg's parking lot. Great, again, for Greenberg's, great for them. It's going to be much more visible. It's what they need to do. Ideally, I wanted them on School Street, and that's why we talked about closing School Street. Restaurant, any restaurant, most restaurants, close the road. You bring down people, restaurants are going to be full. They don't care about vehicles reaching it. Bank, different story, but we looked at the bank. They have a rear entrance. They have the drive-through entrance on Main Street. The concern there was a residence on School Street in UU, but UU, they usually use the parking lot of the bank anyway. So we didn't see traffic-wise or access-wise being the issue. It was more traffic-wise. When you're coming up to the School Street on Pleasant side, being only one way, you'd all be directed to go east, which would put traffic back onto Main Street at the end of Pleasant Street, which is already a bad intersection. That would resolve itself after a while when people realize the road's closed. Don't go that way if where you want to get is to Main Street. But in the beginning, it would be difficult with the additional traffic going all the way to Pleasant Street.
Okay.
That's how it's done in many, many towns, unless they have a town square somewhere in the town.
Okay, the program you mentioned, though, you're going to have music downtown. It's going to be periodic. It's going to be, if I heard you right, it's not something you're going to be able to schedule. It's just going to happen.
It's usually individuals, a guitar player, the violinists, solo performers.
And you feel strong enough that this is going to happen? You have enough people to make this happen?
Yeah, we've done it over the years. But people will ask when. It's when they tell me they're available. And they're literally $50 to $100. And they'll play for a couple hours in front of South Street Cafe.
I thought I saw Greg with his guitar case open in front of him.
Everybody has a guitar case. A lot of people, like Mayfest, the bands, we don't pay any bands during Mayfest.
Yeah.
But I say, put out your promo, open the guitar case. And some of them do very well because they keep coming back every single year, and then they also get to promote themselves and get some gigs out of it. So we showcase all the entertainment, but that event has a zero entertainment budget. It's all in marketing. But we know the importance to them because we have 5 stages, 6 stages that are full the entire event. So that's why anybody who works either at May or joins us at Mayfest or does anything with us throughout the year, we give them the option to, here's the bulb out. You just got to let us know when you're doing it so that there's not 2 of you scheduled at the same time.
Okay.
And whatever's good for you is good for us. Okay. But it's daytime.
Jim, Hanson, Greg.
John, I just got a question for you about Oldcastle. First of all, I think it's wonderful that they're going to be down there. I've been crowing about that for a long time. I think it's got a real transformational potential for the downtown, especially during evening hours when plays are going to be prepared. But yeah, do you know what other discussions, what other kind of activities Oldcastle has talked about or planned for that space that...
Just what you've read in the paper. It's and I don't know if it includes like an extended season, but I've heard that in discussions, plus using it or making it available for performance space.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've spoken with Eric Peterson about several different things, among them showing movies, old movies, a speakers bureau, and you're invited to offer any ideas. You know, at my card, you know, I'll tell you the day that it came out in the paper. There were people there just absolutely ecstatic about
my involvement was that they're going to expand they're going to go beyond the theater productions they've done in the past. There's going to be some musical programs. There's going to be some children programs that are going to be held in there also. Right. And Eric's got a plan along with his board, but it's too early to announce because, like I said earlier, it's probably going to be 6 months or so before they get the construction work done. The amphitheater type seating, the stage built, and all that other stuff they got to do. But the good news is it's moving, it's going to happen, and everybody's working on that.
It's going to serve more than that too. It's when I was talking with Eric, any town in the United States would die to have live theater on Main Street. And we got it, and it's going to add to the position of Bennington as being a visible place for the arts and entertainment, which ultimately is the strength in that area is what's growing in downtowns, where retail is what's really floundering.
Yeah, well, you know, it's coming back to Bennington. And somebody can help me out with the name of the gentleman. He's got a show on Cat TV right now talking about the theaters in Bennington, the Stark Theater that I think Henry Putnam bought initially and put up there. But he's got a good program that's playing right now there. Then there was the Hart Theater, and you know, it's not new to downtown Bennington to have theater down here. We just lost it a while when we had no venue to do it. Now we've got a venue to do it. It should work. John, thanks for that brief.
I have just one more question for John. Going back to the farmers market, do you know if they're planning entertainment on Tuesday nights like they do on Saturdays? Is there an expanded?
Yeah, they are.
Okay. So there's going to be entertainment then?
Yeah, they're extended hours too. They start
3 to 6.
3 to 6.
Instead of ending at 5, they're going to 6 o'clock.
Extra hour, which should be a huge boost in the amount of traffic that they can generate.
Thank you.
I guess I'd like the board members just to be thinking about, I think what I heard tonight is all of us feel it's important to try to create some activity for the locals downtown on a convenient time that's going to benefit. So I ask you just to be thinking about it, get some good ideas. Let's bring it up in other business at some point in time. And I think the decision we're going to have to be making is whether we turn the mission over to BBC. If we do that, we turn funds over to BBC to make it happen, or whether that's something we do at the town level, like we do the 4th of July fireworks. Stuart's saying no, but you never know. You know, if it's important enough to make it happen, we can figure out. But the sponsorship's got to be part of it, because I know it gets expensive. Each year, the firemen have a harder time to pay for the bands that's coming here for the Battle Day Parade, because the expense, reasonable, you know, and you know, gas expense and everything to get them here. You can understand why it's going up, but it does get expensive. So, John, thanks for the update.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Recreation Center borrowing. Stuart?
Yes. I'm here tonight really just, and Larry's here as well to back me up, just to talk a little bit about the bids that came in and what, given their very competitive cost, we'll be able to add to the project. Not only will we be able to replace the western wall and point up the southern wall, We'll also be able to redo the roof to our specifications. We'll be able to actually replace the 3 flat roofs, which was something we weren't certain we would be able to do, although it was one of the priority items in the original structural elements. We'll be able to paint the entire facility to match the new wall and add some necessary ceiling fans to the pool area to assist with airflow. All of this will come to a cost, including contingency, at $610,000. This also includes the engineering costs that have already been incurred. It's really good news. The voters allowed us to borrow $680,000. We're going to come in under that amount, and if we're fortunate, we'll be even less than that. And any money, of course, not spent will not be borrowed. We hope to be able to, with your permission, place on the May 14th agenda the necessary paperwork to have you folks approve the borrowing. And we'll take it as a line of credit so that we can have the money available and move through the project very expeditiously.
Okay, I understand what your memo here, and I understand what you're asking. When we were discussing the problems initially, before we said we were going to put it out for a vote, we said part of the problems we were incurring were because we did not have a good maintenance program. And we thought about what we're going to do to make sure that we're watching and maintaining it properly so we get a longer life out of the work we're getting done?
Well, I don't mean to disagree with you. I don't think the issue was maintenance of the systems that were moving the air out of the pool area. The problem was the original design pulled that air into the walls and took it past the structural steel. Chlorine and steel lead to corrosion. And we've got a pretty good maintenance crew now. The addition of a working foreman, Mark Sawyer, has brought, I think, an enhanced operation for us using the same number of people. And I don't think we'll have a problem with the maintenance, Joe, that we're seeing here. And I think, and Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're looking at probably adding another 20 to 30 years of life to this building by completing this work.
Board members.
So where are we seeing the savings? Because it seems like this is underneath the original estimate by quite a bit. You have a feeling for where that savings is coming in here? I mean, I just looked through some of the bids, and, you know, the high bid and the low bid is separated by $240,000.
That's correct.
I mean, the exact same scope of work between those two bids?
Yes. The fact of the matter is, because we had so many interested bidders, we got a very, very competitive bid. Remember, when we were first looking at the building on a broad engineering structural review, we were thinking that we were going to have to replace the southern wall as well. We were also concerned that the steel that was in the eastern wall, the inside wall, may have been impacted by the chlorine. Once you folks allowed us to go to the voters and get the money, and we were able to bring the structural engineer in and do some actual demolition to determine whether or not there was any damage on the interior wall systems and the southern wall system, we found that the principal problems were at the interior steel on the western wall only. And therefore, we were able to essentially downsize the project when it went to bid itself, and the number of bidders also brought it down very, very competitively.
So when this project's complete, that building will be structurally sound. There's nothing that we're aware of right now or that could be coming down the line?
Well, part of what we're looking at with the roof contingency at $30,000 is we're assuming that when we rip those flat roofs off, we may find some additional damage that's not visible to the naked eye. We think we have the money available to complete those roofs. Obviously, the entire pool area. Much of the exterior will be cleaned up and pointed up, and that's going to really leave us with the interior spaces in the building. The bathrooms are dated, they're old. We probably should be looking to upgrade some of those. There may be some additional mechanical issues within the building itself that we're going to have to address at some point in the future, but I think you're right, Justin. Structurally, the building will be sound.
Is there any plans for the $50,000 and $30,000 contingencies we have in here if nothing's met and those funds are left over?
We simply won't use them. And it will mean when we set up the project payback, it will reduce the amount of annual payments to pay it all back. We simply won't borrow the money.
Jason, you've had your hand up for a while. You want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah. Justin just raised the point that stuck out on the second sheet and on this part of the packet, particular line 4 in the last line, the $80,000 worth of contingencies, which concerned me because that's nearly 15% of the new project cost, which, you know, to an uneducated person in the construction trades seemed high, particularly when we were, I don't recall those being part of what we thought we'd originally have a bid on, which was obviously designed for more money. And I also was concerned because I thought there'd been some pretty invasive inspection done, you know, candidly, before this board even knew that there was an issue down there, going back about a year. And then after the fact, you know, we were told there'd been some pretty full-bore inspections that had been going on, and we had this recommendation that was done for us for nothing at that time. Throwing on top of that $80,000, you've got a roof replacement there for $63,000, which, you know, if we're going to have a construction crew there and can replace roofs, that's the time to do it. I don't disagree with that. But I guess, you know, if people have bid on, and we had very competitive bids on the base project that was that ended up being bid out at $349,000 when we'd allocated $680 minus the $50 for the engineering. That's almost half of what we bid out. I guess my question is, why aren't we rebidding out the extra work instead of just awarding it out? It's a lot of money, and it concerns me not because of the non-importance of that building, which I think is a very important building, but I'm concerned about other bond paybacks we may have in the near future, i.e. river work, Irene work. That's always a question in the air, and before we keep adding to the total amount of bond payments foisted upon the voters of Bennington, are we sure we want to do all that? I know there's a lot of questions and a lot of comments in what I just said, but anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, I think initially 15% contingency on a large project is become pretty standard now in the construction field.
How standard is it that the contingency gets used?
Often it doesn't, and that's why it's a contingency. If we don't need.
What's our experience been with our contractors on their contingencies?
I think in the filtration plant we used probably half, if I remember correctly, of the contingency. But there again, that was a renovation of an old building. You never know what you're going to find when you open the walls, even though you might anticipate things. And as Larry's indicated here, the contingency here, the $50,000 is really in case we run into things such as lead and asbestos and stuff like that that's there that is not yet known. If we don't find it.
I do have a question on you. Not yet known. That building was built in 1971 and 1972. We should have knowledge of what materials were used in 1971 or 1972 that now reside within those walls. That shouldn't be a mystery to us whether or not we have asbestos in that building or not.
Well, I think the more than likely we have asbestos in the building.
I suspect we do.
We do, and you have to plan that when you do a renovation project, if you impact it in any way, then you have to either abate it or do something with it. The basement, the ceiling area is sprayed with asbestos fireproofing. We hope to not disturb it, and that's the plan, But if we have to tinker with it, moving ductwork or something, that's what that contingency's for.
Well-
And we did already, I mean, we know there is some asbestos on some piping that has to be removed to remove some ductwork. So, you know, we know it's there, and we're going to have to deal with it. But you have to kind of set that money aside to make sure. I don't think you'd want me to come to you and say, guess what? It's going to cost us this much more because we ran into X, Y, Z.
Okay, well, then a follow-up question to that is in the $349,000 base bid, what portion of that was contingency for the work they were going to do for the unforeseen stuff that they were going to run into? What portion of the 349 was their contingency?
Who's?
Twin Company. They bid, they were the winning bidder at 349.
Right.
And some portion of that must have been contingency. Are we putting contingency upon contingency or is it contingency?
So this is a contingency that we set in our budget for the job. Now, whether Quinn has their own built-in contingency, I don't know. I mean, typically, if they encounter something that they didn't bid on or anticipate, and it's an extra, it's a change order or whatever, and as contingencies cover those as well.
Well, okay. Now, I've got a couple more questions. We asked for firm bids. We spoke on this board at some length about, in the last year, on various different projects, and my recollection is this had to have been one of them because we don't discuss $680,000 construction projects every day on this board, that overruns or change orders were something we were concerned about and something we wanted to avoid. I see some board members nodding. Perhaps my recollection is correct. And perhaps it's just my ignorance of the construction industry, but it seems to me that if we had that philosophy on this board and we made it clear that we didn't want fudge, we didn't want change orders, we wanted a bid, and we are going to hold you to it. That's kind of the resonance of the board that I remember from that conversation. That when we got a bid of $349,000, which, as Justin pointed out, that is the stark thing that stands out on this sheet right here, that it is so much lower than the absolute high bid, which is, albeit quite a bit higher than the next highest bid, but there is a awfully large swing. I'm hopeful that within that $349,000, they've created some contingency within that, and I just want to make sure we're not putting contingency upon contingency and that we're just going to spend the money away and put it on a contract. That concerns me. It's a lot of money. We have other bond payments.
I would say that more than likely, each of the contractors who bid put in sufficient dollars to ensure that they make a reasonable profit on the job, and that they can handle most things that they can't see when they bid.
That's my understanding of a bid.
But the contingency, when we gave you the $680,000, that contained a contingency that we set up to cover those unusual circumstances that you just can't foresee. We don't intend to spend the contingency unless we have to. And that would be to cover something that was entirely unforeseen by the engineers and by the bid documents themselves. The 349 base bid and the base bid of every contractor there is based on the specifications that were put out to bid. If they have some fluff within their monies,
business.
That's their business.
That's not our
business. There's no contingency per se within those base bids.
Well, no, but there's a commitment in that bid to deliver a product for $349,000.
That's true.
Now, which I think we all take rather seriously. When we, now it strikes, maybe I'm wrong, on a project this size, we said, bid this. I hope, well, I guess I'll just personalize it. If I were going to renovate a bathroom in my house, and I said I've got 6 contractors here to bid, and I say, put it out there, and the low bid comes out at $5,000, and the high bid comes back at $8,000. My guess would be, I hope I wouldn't tell those 6 contractors ahead of time, by the way, I've got an extra $2,000 in my back pocket in case you need it and you have a couple unforeseen things. Guys, this is the house, inspect it, give me a contract, go to work.
I might say, though, Jason, that you'd probably find that you'd have to spend an extra $1,000 or so once you got into the project.
Maybe, but it just seems, well, the word contingency seems to be.
We have control over that contingency, though.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's one of, it's.
This is the contract that they signed for that amount.
Right.
And anything beyond that has to be approved through a change order process. And if there is a change order for something, whatever, it's nice, I mean, it's prudent that you have a set-aside contingency amount to cover those kinds of things. To come back to the taxpayers and say, guess what? We didn't plan for anything other than that. We didn't set aside a contingency. We need more money.
Well, Larry, that's part of what concerns me, because I still, and I've heard it a couple different ways, and I understand it's an old building, and sometimes people can misspeak, but surely there must have been knowledge from all 5, 6 bidders that this is an older building with asbestos. It might be disturbed in a rather invasive project. Here's a product we need, deliver it for a price, bid accordingly, and not, and by the way, there's another $50,000 set aside for what may or may not happen. That's, I guess that's the underpinning.
Well, yeah, and that's not part of the bid process. We're showing you what the contingency is, because
See our budget.
that's been in the budget that you folks all approved us to go forward. The contractor doesn't know. He knows that there's, in general, the voters have approved $680,000. But he's trying to make his bid as competitive as possible. He doesn't know that there's a $50,000 contingency out there when he's doing his bid documents. He's got a set of documents he's bidding from, and that's what we're going to have a contract for.
They do now.
Well, yeah, they do now, but you know it's prudent in this world.
But let me ask a question. Who's going to be the clerk of the works of this job? Are we going to do this internally?
Well, Larry will be the principal clerk of the works. We'll use the structural engineer where we think it's appropriate, and we'll use McDonald Secor, who is the general engineer, where we think it's appropriate.
And any change order that we think has to come back to the board, correct?
No, it would be approved by the manager.
By the manager, okay. You know, everybody's worried about disparity. I don't know any of these contractors, but I'm assuming these are all general contractors. And look down at alternate 7, which is prep, prime, paint, existing exterior. He may have had to bid that out or sub that out. He may not have had a paint crew in his company. And I think looking at the spreadsheet, my guess would be where you see the big discrepancies or changes in like price per square foot.
Right.
It's telling me they're going out and sub that because he hasn't got the internal help to do that. And that's probably why Quinn probably has more internal, can do more of it internal in his own operation than some of these other guys do. If you look at the numbers where they appear on these different alternate numbers, I think that's what that tells me anyway. But I think, Jason, I hear what you're saying, but I'm trying to go back to what we had the discussion. We were concerned how much to ask the voters for, if I remember right. We didn't know what that number was.
And we put a little extra in there.
I think that was your request, put a little extra in there.
I agree with that.
Okay. And I think that's what we've done.
680 and 349 goes beyond what we all talked about.
I see the numbers, yeah. But I think the work we're going to get done, though, is all within what we asked the voters, the scope of the work we asked the voters to approve money for. I'm hoping we're going to come in a lot less money than what we asked the voters for. I hope, you know, based on not using the contingency and anything else we're going into, that we come in quite a bit lower. Maybe 15%, maybe 20%.
Going back to the clerk of the works question, we've already paid $50,000, and that was also a bid process for the engineering. Does the change order work, clerk of the works work beyond what Larry and our internal folks do? Does that get included in the $50,000? Because I know we were at a very, very solid conversation that we are bidding this. That was end of the discussion. That was, give us your number and no more. That was very firm.
I'll let Larry answer that one.
Yeah, the engineering firm, they are providing project oversight.
For the 48.9.
Yes, that covers it.
One more dime.
covers it right through. And I should add that the original scope of work that we put out the bid for the design work was specific to the pool structure. When we awarded that, when we started doing actual demolition to look to see what we were facing, and we found that the steel on the east wall was in good shape, didn't need any work. That would have been a huge cost, which was part of that 680. When we found that we didn't have to do that work, the engineering crew stepped outside their scope of work, designed and specified the flat roof repairs, which was in the original engineering report as being needed. So we didn't get charged any more for that either.
Well,
And that was quite a bit of work.
well, 49 is quite a bit of money.
But they were the low bidder for only a pretty
Actually,
tight.
The low bidder.
Well, they were the,
They were the winning bidder.
right.
We got some questions.
Finish, Jason.
I'm assuming that all these contractors got the same specifications, but the disparity in number, I wonder if we have any control or influence with respect to the products that they use, and are they using?
It's all specified, the exact type of product.
All right. The other question that I have with respect to the disturbance of asbestos, I've seen what happens when it is disturbed. I mean, it's thousands of dollars wrapping in place. Can we, if it can be shown that one of these, the contractor in some way disturbs the asbestos, instead of us paying for it out of the contingency fee, let's give them an incentive not to disturb it and have them pay for it.
If they encounter it, by law, they have to stop. If they see it, not sure, it has to be tested. We've already tested some areas in there that we know are going to have to be addressed before the work begins, and that will be removed.
Okay, but one other question, if they disturb it and they incur a cost to us that otherwise would not have occurred, why should we eat it?
Well, I don't think we're going to have that kind of problem. I mean,
Well, you've
these
got a
guys,
contingency,
it's
$50,000 worth of contingency funds.
It's for us to remove it if it's encountered. They're not going to go knocking it off the walls.
Not intentionally, no,
Right.
but it happens.
Well, it'll all be identified before they start, because we're going to remove at least the areas that we know where it is before they start.
So, okay, so down in the basement, you said that you're going to try to avoid disturbing that.
Yeah, as a matter of fact,
So in other words, it'll be left.
some of the original ductwork to the old air handling unit, we're just going to leave rather than disturb the ceiling, and we'll just leave it.
Who's going to be handling that removal? Not the company that has the winning bid here?
No, it would be a certified asbestos company that we would pay for out of the contingency.
Okay, so,
Which they may be. I mean, we ran into that at the Green Mountain Network, and Russell is doing our work, and they had to remove some asbestos in the cellar, which we had to pay extra for, but they were certified in asbestos removal, so they could do it.
so is the
Sometimes you run
asbestos
into
that we know that's currently there that already has to be removed, is that included within their bid? The parts that we know are there that need to go?
No, that's going to come out of contingency.
Any idea on what that cost is right now for the amount that we know already has to be removed?
Well, we know of some pipe work, that's going to be about 1,000 right there, at least the pipes that's next to the ductwork that has to come out. And we had the fellow in there early this week to look to identify those areas, and that's the area he's identified. The question also came up about lead paint, the original paint that was put on the steel columns. Most likely, back when it was originally sprayed, it was probably lead paint. We've done a preliminary test on it, but almost all the paint is corroded off from the rust and the chlorine. But if when we expose it, there's an area and it has to be treated, then we deal with it.
Great.
One of the concerns I've heard from citizens is they don't want to see this get opened up and then have to do it again in a few years. So I appreciate that we're going to be able to do some more of these things. And than we first anticipated. The contingency, the way I understand it, to take it back to the bathroom analogy, is basically
Not my best work. Not my best.
you pay somebody to put in a new tub, they pull it out, and the support beam's rotten.
Right.
That's not the plumber's fault or the bathroom guy's fault. Somebody's got to pay for that, or they leave
No
the tub
question.
in the middle of the floor. And that was in the original estimating, is what you're saying. Is that correct? That we always had the contingency plan there. We didn't bid out a contingency plan. We've always had it.
We put that in at the first
Okay.
day. Especially a project like this in a building this old.
What is the, what they're saying, about 30 years expected with this kind of work to extend the life of the building? Is that what I understood?
Typically, I mean,
Yeah, 20 to 30 years.
it's at its life now.
I probably won't be here to hold you to it. I'm just,
Me neither.
Okay.
thank you.
What Stuart's asking is be able to place the final paperwork on the 14 May agenda. Have any problem having him do this so we move forward?
I do not.
Do we need a motion?
No, we
Don't need a motion, no. I wanted to review this with you, and we talked to the bank about trying to pull the paperwork together for this evening, but it would have been too much of a crunch.
Okay. The only thing I'd ask is this whole project, just, I think I'm speaking for most of the board, as this progresses, we'd like periodic updates as this goes. If we run into a problem that wasn't anticipated, it's brought to our attention right away. Okay, Larry? Okay. The next item on the agenda is boards and commissions. At 5 o'clock this evening, we went into executive session. We interviewed 4 people for different positions, 2 for the town service officer, and 2 for a lister. The town service officer was voted on, and it's Glenn, help me out, folks.
Gagnon.
Chris Gagne. Congratulations, Chris. You're now our service officer. And maybe by the time it comes up again, I'll be able to pronounce your last name. Right? For the listers, Shirley Archibald, who is an incumbent, and Carol Holm, who is a newcomer to Bennington, were appointed as our listers. So congratulations, everyone. We'll move on from there. And we're still doing appointments, we're still doing interviews. We have some for the DRB that are going to be coming up, and there'll be more announcements in the future. Okay, next item on the agenda are liquor and tobacco license. Stuart?
Yes, I'll circulate the revised list that you got early this evening for your signatures. We have no new ones, so those are all renewals.
Okay. Manager's report.
Yes. Oddly enough, we have the BBC's request for street closings on the agenda. John, we should have handled that early on. But for Mayfest, which is scheduled for May 26th, from 5 a.m. until 6 p.m., they're seeking to close all of the streets that they closed last year, which includes closing off Valentine Street all the way up. They actually detour traffic at Union and Main as the main detour. People will, obviously, residents and others will be able to get down into that area, but vendors, I think, are all the way out to Valentine Street, if I'm correct, John.
Vendors are at the farmer's market starts there and continues on further. So we do make those things almost every day.
And then they, as well, they ask for a similar closure except stopping at Valentine Street for the Fallapalooza, which was a first-time event last year, now scheduled for October 27th from 6 a.m. until 5 p.m.
Need a motion for those?
So moved.
I'll second.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Let me ask one question, John. I should have asked it when you were up here. A citizen came up. There's always a big crunch when we tear down Mayfest. A lot of volunteers to get the trash cans loaded now. Have we ever looked at getting corrections to help us provide people there when we shut that down to help our volunteers?
They help me 2 days prior, but they're not available on Saturday.
They're not available then, but we do use them prior?
Yeah. They
Set up? Okay. Anything else, Stuart?
Yes. The Northside Drive Water Main Replacement Project, which is continuing this year, the bid came in just under what we had originally budgeted. Unfortunately, The prior project carried over a fiscal year due to some delays in the project and actually cut into the monies available during fiscal year 12. We don't know that we'll need to do this because we'll be moving soon into fiscal year 13, and we will simply use the monies and the funds that are available to us, but I'm requesting the use of system reserves to complete this project if we need to do so. At this point, it's $163,000 that we would commit maximum. We may not need all of that money, but rather than come to you in a crunch time, I'm seeking to get your permission now.
So is there a possibility you will not need any of it?
We'll need some of it, yes. I don't know how much, though.
Jason?
Stu, if the low bid came in where we thought it would, and the actual fiscal work overlapped fiscal years, wouldn't the money we budgeted carry forward into the next budget year too of unspent monies?
Well, what happens with the enterprise funds is that monies that are unexpended go into the enterprise fund balance. Technically, that's real dollars and dollars that you could reach to.
Yeah.
But we're very close now to the end of this fiscal year. We hope to have this project end by June 30th, so it would bring it to a close at the end of the fiscal year, and that may require that we grab some of that reserve to do that. And then we have the next phase of that project budgeted for, or will have budgeted going forward. You'll see that budget in May.
Okay, so out of the $163,000 of the reserve, which is the fund balance that...
Actually, that's a reserve. That 163 is a reserve dedicated to equipment. Not equipment, but system repairs. The fund balance for the water system is a number that I don't have here.
I probably misused the term.
Yeah, the reserves are set aside by this board for specific uses, and those are the monies I'm reaching out to, is the system reserves.
I guess I just don't understand. Maybe it's the end of a long day, but there was work bid out at 332, which was approximately the budget. Bid came in at 332, budgeted 332. Last phase of the work, we're finishing up work, goes into the next fiscal year. There should have been monies budgeted that went into that balance that we could then draw from. Does that make sense to the rest of the board, what I'm asking?
I would have thought that funds would be carried forward.
Well, I would have thought that too, but I think Stu's absolutely correct.
Yeah,
it's an enterprise fund, it is a little bit different, but
Yeah.
I get the sense, in my mind, I'm thinking this should be no net change, but it looks like we're grabbing a big piece of the reserve.
When we bid the projects, we try to get them done so that we can budget effectively for them.
Right.
This is a 4-phase project. Phase 1 was the first phase by the diner. It was the pressure reducing valve that went in the ground. That project took longer than we thought. So it carried into fiscal year 12 when we thought we would finish it in fiscal year 11. So when you look at the line item expenditure, systems, other purchase service or contracted services, the money spent actually are attributed to that line item. So if you look at the line item for systems for other purchase services, we don't have the money available to us that we originally budgeted. It doesn't mean that the project has been overspent. It doesn't mean that the monies aren't necessarily available, but as we come up on year end, if we want to finish this project in a timely manner, we would have to grab some of these reserves, perhaps as much as $163,000, to finish the project, knowing, and you'll see the budget when it comes to you in May, that phase 3 will be starting, or bid in and starting in the next fiscal year. So it's a matter of having the money available to us in case we need it. That's really what it comes down to.
Anybody else?
I can't say that I've got my mind around that.
Well, would you ask, I understand you want to be prepared because you think it's going to need it.
That's what, it's all about being prepared.
You're asking us to take out of the systems reserve That's the sewer systems reserve,
Water system.
or water systems reserve, 163K.
Just allow us to access it. You folks have to approve the use of the reserves. So we're asking for that, to allow us to access it in case we need it. If in fact, by the end of this fiscal year, the fund balance is attractive, we haven't spent the entire budget, we'll use the monies that are available to us out of this fiscal year, and we won't grab the reserves.
See, we don't know that amount yet, Jason. That's the
No,
amount I'm
we
looking
get
for.
that.
It's a safety valve.
Do we replenish the reserve later? Does that come up?
There are monies budgeted in each year to go into reserve, so yes.
Right, no, I mean beyond what we normally budget, because it's a $332,000 project, which is what it was budgeted for, but now we're taking $163,000 out of a reserve, which is 50% of the total. It just, I'm not questioning you, Stu, I just don't understand what I'm voting on here, I guess.
It really, we're seeking authorization to use as much of the reserve as necessary. It may be that because we had a light winter, we didn't have a lot of water main freezes, we didn't have a lot of repairs to the system, that within the FY12 budget that finishes June 30th, there will be sufficient funds that we won't have to touch this. But when we just look at the line item for systems, contracted services, we're already have spent half of it covering the project that should have finished last fiscal year. So it's a matter of projects overlapping fiscal years when we didn't anticipate that they would do so.
Other board members, Greg?
So my understanding that it was phase one, money got used from the following year to complete it just because it went into a second year, and now if this goes over budget, the money isn't in the right account, basically.
Essentially.
To complete this.
And
if
we
it stays in
anticipate
budget.
We anticipate that what confuses the issue is this project we anticipate finishing in the fiscal year.
Right.
So there is no carryover into the next year, and we don't have sufficient funds, at least as we look at it now, to finish the project in this fiscal year without using some of the reserves. And remember, this is the end of April. We have May and June to finish up the budget. Melissa and Terry are doing this analysis on a monthly basis, trying to understand what we're going to have at year end. If we don't have to use this money, we won't.
Did we overspend other projects, which is why there's...
Well, the only large expenditures that we've been running out of the water fund that make it look worse than it is the Irene expenditures. And remember, even though those are 90% reimbursable, those are monies we're spending out of the borrowed funds, that part of those $5 million that at some point will be reimbursed, but they have not been reimbursed entirely at this point.
So I guess I'm looking at it the way Joe kind of explained it, where he said, we thought it was going to be 332, we budgeted 332, we didn't get some work done during that fiscal year, so that money that we didn't spend should have carried over to the next fiscal year.
Well,
and then we wouldn't be hitting a reserve. It would be, or maybe it would come out of a reserve because that extra money went into a reserve, but it seems like we're spending an extra $163,000 when I see it coming out of a reserve that only totals $209,000. It's 80% of the reserve, and it's 50% of the total project cost.
Yes. I can't explain it any other way. I mean, it is, for us, it's an issue of moving from a one fiscal year to the next, carrying a project over we didn't anticipate carrying over. And so the funds that were expended, and I don't know what happened in that, I can't tell you what happened in that first year that may have caused those funds to be spent elsewhere. They might have been drawn on for something else. I really don't know. All I'm telling you is what Terry and Melissa have come to me and said, look, we're going to need to possibly access this money in order to finish this project in this fiscal year.
And we won't know exactly how much until we sit down in May with Melissa and Terry.
Probably, well, when we'll probably know by the end of May how well we're doing.
Did we already spend the $332 we originally budgeted?
We've spent all but, we've spent $163,000 of it. It went towards that last project, out of that particular line item.
Okay, so that went towards Phase 1
Yes.
out of the, okay, I think I'm getting it now.
So where'd the $163,000 go that we didn't spend on that project? Into the reserve?
No, it's potentially available to us. It may have been drawn off to help pay for the local share of Irene.
That's money that we would essentially be recouping the majority of, but we don't have access to it currently.
That's correct.
That's part of the issue.
I think that's part of the issue, yes.
So we're not asking for money we don't have, it's in the reserve, we're asking just for authority to dip into that reserve up to $163,000.
If we need to.
That's correct. And I will keep you updated so that you'll know at the first meeting in May, you'll know the second meeting in May where we are and what we're using.
And when we sit down with Terry and Melissa, we'll have, if we go too much into it, then we'll decide whether we want to raise the amount of reserve we put in the 13 budget.
Well, remember, we have been increasing the rates for the water system. I think it's 11% per year, and those funds have been set aside in reserve. That's how we've been building the reserve. It's also helping us eliminate that issue, that deficit of fund balance, because we weren't budgeting for depreciation.
Right.
At the end of, I think it's next fiscal year, we would have, I think, eliminated that problem with depreciation. Sewer system we eliminated last year. We're now online. So that I think might be part of the problem as well from an accounting perspective.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve up to $163,000 in reserves out of the Water Systems Fund?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, in a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's 5. All against? 1. 1 absent. Okay, anything else, Stuart?
Last time, I think, Joe, you asked for a breakdown of the Irene costs.
Right.
And Dan has provided me with the information that you see. The repair to the flood wall at Brooklyn Bridge is estimated to cost $36,000. As yet, eligibility undetermined. Repair to the Army Corps levee, culvert, and flap gate are estimated to cost $25,000. Eligibility as yet undetermined. The footbridge replacement estimated to cost $750,000 with FEMA reimbursement and insurance reimbursement. Total cost to the town $37,500. And then the water line replacement on Woodford Bridge. I think those bids just came in last week, and I don't have the numbers for you, but that will be the last part of the water system as well. And that we will be paying through the state of Vermont. And generally, when the state of Vermont does a bridge project where the water line is involved, we probably won't see the full billing for that for at least 2 or 3 years before that is ultimately billed to us.
Okay. Question, Justin?
Yes, if, on the footbridge piece, if we were to determine to not replace that, the funds that are available from insurance and FEMA reimbursement, do we have the option to do other things with that?
The FEMA reimbursement funds would not be available to us. The insurance funds would be reduced. The amount of funds paid to us would be reduced under our plan because we weren't intending to replace the bridge.
Any idea what that money may look like?
The total insured value of the bridge was $515,000. So what they might withhold if we decided not to go forward, I couldn't tell you. But I remember talking with the board at some point, I thought, where we were getting quite a bit of pressure to put that bridge back because a lot of people use it.
I'm hearing from folks.
Could we at least get what those numbers would be?
Sure.
For our next meeting?
Okay. Anything else, Stuart?
No, that's it.
Other business, Justin?
I have nothing, Joe.
Jim?
Yeah, that's, one of our citizens came to me last week, brought up concern about dogs at Willow Park not being leashed, and the owner's not cleaning up after the dogs. He says it's been a recurring problem, and he mentioned one specific occasion where there were 2 rather large German Shepherds who were pretty rambunctious and intimidated these elderly people who look forward to using the park on a daily basis to get some exercise.
You say you have the names of those people?
I don't offhand.
Okay.
I can get them.
Why don't you give it to Stuart when you get it?
Okay.
Anything else? Jason?
Nope.
Greg? Sharon?
Just to remind the citizens and the kids about bicycles and skateboards on the sidewalks downtown. They go pretty fast sometimes and don't get out of the way for people who are walking down the streets. So just a little reminder that they're not supposed to be there. And that's it.
Okay. You have anything, Mr. Bethel?
Yes, you didn't give time when Mr. Shanahan was up. I was wondering if this board would consider somebody else trying to do something with music under the tent for this year. Greg's idea was not a bad one, trying to hold something at the town hall. Never thought of that, using part of the town hall.
What are you suggesting, Mike?
Well, just see if somebody else could get maybe some bands or DJs to put something on a couple times a month so that we don't have to wait a whole year and come back to the board with an idea, maybe a price or whatever, and see if we could get...
What I think I heard from the board is we all thought it's a good idea at the right time to have music entertainment downtown. The issue is money. If somebody wanted to take it on, it came up with a way of sponsorship that in a proposal, we would definitely consider it.
Would you allow me to do that and see if...
You're a citizen of Bennington, Mr. Bethel.
Well, I think so.
You know, you do other things, and...
No, but I just think that if Greg's idea is really a good one, that we could utilize the town hall, we wouldn't have to bother with Merchants Bank or a tent. And I've already talked to some musical people and DJs, and they said that they would basically do it almost for nothing. And the reason I think it's important to do it this year is if we can get it back in gear along with the great thing of the theater, it would get people to think of entertainment, music in the downtown again. Because what Eric Peterson is going to do is, if it's successful, it's going to be a big plus to downtown. There's no way that it can't be if it can.
Anything we can do to enhance the downtown or make it more vibrant, I think is acceptable. Just, you know, and I know I've heard you say it, we're in a bad economic year. This plan cannot come to the board and ask us to come up with money at this point in time to make it happen.
No, I'm not asking
If you come up
for
with
money.
sponsorships and you come up with an idea where it can be, we'll listen to what you've got to
But if I could
propose.
go to certain people and say the town, if you give some money, the town could do it, and then I don't think it's going to take a lot of money, but it will take electricity, it will take, you know, a place to hold it. And somebody, I think it was Kevin Goodyear was talking to, said that there used to be dancing on a Friday night years ago in Bennington, and I just thought when you said that, we got the parking lot right beside the town hall, why we couldn't section off just that parking lot to say, come down and dance and have people like, maybe there's a country and western where we could do some night where people could do, and just easier stuff rather than getting Woods Tea Company at $1,500.
I've heard you volunteer, so go ahead and put something together and come back and talk to us.
I just don't dance, so don't ask.
Is there a complication with using the town hall lawn that you can think of?
Well, it really depends on the event. Probably not. I'm a little concerned about dancing in the parking lot. I think that brings a whole different set of issues to the fore. And, you know, I'd have to take a look at it and talk with whoever Mike brings forward. I'd have to talk with them about how they plan to handle it and how they plan to, because there are security issues and everything else.
Right.
Would there be an insurance problem if somebody was dancing in the parking lot? Are you talking that way? I mean, wouldn't our insurance cover it if town insurance cover that?
If the town was sponsoring the dance, that would be one thing. If someone else is sponsoring a dance or putting on a dance.
I'm asking the town to sponsor it. I'll help with it, but I'm asking the town, if you're going to use the town hall area, the town would sponsor it, and I would help them raise money and organize it for them, but I can't do it.
Go ahead, put your proposal together, Mike, and bring it to us.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, I have no other business. We do need to go to executive session for contracts.
So moved.
I have a motion to go to executive for contracts. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? And that's 6, 1 absent. Thank you, folks, for coming tonight.